sharing who you are and what you do. So, Leanne.
Hi everyone, my name is Leanne. I am from Gator's Cases. I'm the Director of Supply Operations. So what I do is handling all of our operations overseas at the vendor level. So I do have a great team in Asia that I work with, and I'm very thankful for. I love to share the story of myself. I was born and raised in Hong Kong all my life. My very first time in the States was when I was 16 years old in Vegas. So when I applied to college at 18 years old, I was expecting to see Vegas when I college. And I was very disappointed. Of course, I flew to West Boston is where I went to college, but just to show how ignorant I was back then. But yeah, I was not from here, but here I am.
I think there is a little bit of Vegas everywhere in the United States. Though.
My heart.
All right, thank you. Jullie, is your mic working?
Yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed. I actually own a microphone company, and I'm looking at this wireless. Please turn this thing on. My name is Jullie Tan. This is my 34th winter NAMM Show. And someone was asking me, does 34 include the summers? And it doesn't. I think I'm pushing over 40. My first two shows I actually came in as an audio student at USC, and I'm pretty sure I had some dude's name on my badges. And just now I was telling Laura and Leanne that I was in the ladies' room and I actually had to wait in line. So I think we're making progress.
All right. And Emily.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Emily Wolfkiel. I work at Reverb. I've been at the company for about 2 years now, so I am newer to the music industry and so excited to be here at my first NAMM, and I'm learning a ton. But at Reverb, I lead our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. So I come from kind of the tech consulting world, and even before that, started my career in higher education and youth development work. And that's really kind of been a through line for me in my career in terms of pursuing equity and making sure that we're creating environments where everyone can thrive and find opportunity and success. So I'm grateful to be able to do that great work at Reverb.
All right, thank you guys. My next question is going to be about what motivated you to pursue a career in the music industry, and maybe also have you faced any challenges being a woman in the industry? I'm going to just address that myself before I pass that along to you guys. So, I started out wanting to be a musician as a career. Probably a lot of us did. My parents kind of put the kibosh on that. They were like, we're not paying for music school. So I ended up getting a degree in music business and worked at a record label and then later at Ford USA for many, many years, 20 years. And then later moved to starting my own marketing agency and now working at Positive Grid. I have found real fulfillment in working from the business side and still being able to, pursue my creative passion. I was very fortunate that I did feel respected in my career choices. I didn't really bump up against too much sexism in my roles, although I was definitely harassed by outside individuals because I did artist relations, as you can imagine what that would be like for a woman in the early 90s. But I said this at past panels too. As often only the only woman in the room, it led to me being a very assertive person. And I sometimes have to tamper my assertive tendencies now, but I think that has served me well in becoming a leader of large global teams and encouraging them to step up as well. Leanne, why don't you talk about what motivated you to pursue your career and what your challenges were?
Sure. So I was classically trained as a pianist since I was 3 years old, so not by my will. So played for a very long time, and I just remember growing up, I hated piano practice. I hated it. But my dad would make me sit on the piano bench for 2 hours a day. But he didn't know what I learned in class. So I remember all I would do is I try to play by ear. I try try to play what I heard on the radio, what I heard on TV, and all that. So that was kind of how I developed my passion for writing music. And there was a little incident when I was 15, 16 years old. I had a brain tumor, and I was out of school for about a year. So I was in the hospital for a year, and I remember going after the hospital experience, I went back to school, and I just remember how forgotten I was. And we were just kids, so it's not like people decided not to hang out with me. It was just like, people forgot about me. My friends were distant, and then I was also very self-conscious of how sick I looked. And I just remember I had this time with music, just playing piano again, and like connecting with like my only friend. Like when my mind was going crazy, that was kind of like something that kind of calmed me down. So when it came time for college, I wanted to do something. So I grew up in Asia, so back there was not a lot of courses for contemporary music. It was all classical, and honestly, it's just not people don't really care for that. So I decided to try to come to the States to pursue music education. So I went to Boston and I studied music production and writing. So I started off as a jingle writer, thinking I could be creative, and I guess I could, but the stress of making work dependent on creativity was super stressful, and I kind of gave up. And a couple things happened, and I moved down to Tampa, Florida, where Gator is right now. So I kind of just went for the only job available, and I've been there for about 10 years now.
And how do you feel about that step now? The step to work at Gator.
The initial step?
No, how do you feel now about what you do when you're...
I guess that kind of ties into the second part of the question, my challenge. I think my greatest challenge as a woman or, minority, as a young female, stepping into that, I think I had a very respectful group of coworkers, but I think the challenge really comes from within, right? Because I could not help seeing past my difference. You take a photo, I just don't look like one of them, right? And there's always the additional processing that's going on in your head. Like, what do they think? Like, do I talk like one of them? Do I think like one of them? And so a lot of times I think at the beginning too, I kind of took a step back, and that is, I don't know if it is, but I think people take that as not a leadership presence when you're very quiet. So I think it really comes down to building your confidence, and that was my whole journey in the whole 10 years of building a confidence. And I know you might hate me now because I used to hate people when they say that to me, just have confidence, because like, if I can't swim, you can't just tell me to swim. I just can't, I'm gonna drown. So I think you just need to acknowledge that it is a process that you have to go through. You have to allow yourself to pick lessons from it. And then along the way, you work really hard to show that you are the subject matter expert in what you do, and you gain respect from people one step at a time. And once you did that, you're going to get to a point where you can say to yourself, okay, if these people can't see past my gender, my age, my color, that's their problem. It's not me. So I think that was the journey, and I'm happy where I'm in today. Obviously, I still have a lot of self-doubt, but a lot better now, and stepping into a leadership role has been not only a challenge, but really fun.
Awesome, thank you. Jullie, why don't you share a little bit about...
Just hearing Leanne talk, she and I are both graduates of the WiMN of NAMM Summit, and if you haven't heard about it, please Google it, look for it online, and ladies, I encourage you all to apply. And as alumni have a shared WhatsApp group that we chatted, and it actually reminded me of a conversation that was going around a few weeks ago about, it was like a weird thing online where you could figure out what kind of dog you are. And inevitably it comes up, how many of us have been called pit bulls or bulldogs? Just for speaking our minds and saying something in that moment. And one of the things that, how I got into the industry was I too was a musician, and to justify the college degree I studied music recording, because it's like, okay, maybe at that time I doubted myself as a musician, but maybe certainly I could lay cables somewhere, But in 1992, when I graduated college, even getting that $7 an hour job at POP, there was about 20 applicants for 2 jobs. So I started my career answering the service line at AMS Neve, which did put my foot in the professional world. But back in 92, if y'all remember, it was the heyday where every call literally was somebody's channel down at one of the studios in town. So it's always, this is broken, get someone over here to freaking fix it. And they didn't use friggin' as the word. Back then, I got lucky, and again, it's the same kind of thing. We're different flavors of the ice cream, and funny enough, the same company that kind of closed down all the studios, the company called Elisis with their ADATs, they were looking for someone in their international sales department, and they became one of these, oh, you speak a different language, here, we'll put you there. And that got me off and running in my sales and marketing career in the industry. From there, I started the export department at Line 6, at the very beginning of Line 6. Worked for various companies since then. I left the industry for a little bit because after Line 6, there really wasn't enough representation at the table. And I was tired. I was 29 and I was burnt out. Eventually, I had children. My expertise was export. The markets had changed. The internet had come. I was helping a couple friends with consulting work the last couple of years, and a friend of mine called me to come help out with sales at this company called AAA Ribbon Mics. And the joke, but the reality was, as my friend is talking to me on the phone, because I come from the digital world, I was Googling what the heck an AAA ribbon mic was. And when I saw it, and I literally, this was a thought going through my brain, I was like, a $4,000 ribbon mic, who's gonna buy it? And now my employees, my crew, they laugh. They said, well, you bought them all. And it's one of these things, and there are days where our imposter syndrome still hits very hard. Because even at this show, and we're having a great show, there are moments where I thought, wow, but did I earn this? Did I work my way into it? I have a wonderful husband who actually allowed us to leverage our home to buy this company. And it's one of those things where it's like, but I brought myself in this position, but am I worthy? And I have to get out of that mode too. Because today being here and having you all sitting here and even spending your time with us, yeah, hell yeah, I belong here. And thank you all for that.
Thank you. Emily.
Yeah. I look a little bit different since I'm newer to this industry, but I can speak to my own kind of career journey and when I pivoted into the tech space. I think there are some parallels. It felt like starting from scratch again, that sense of imposter syndrome and not having that confidence is something I struggled with earlier on in my career. And it was hard to keep showing up for myself day in and day out, going to interviews, saying, I have transferable skills. I actually have a wealth of strengths, skills, and knowledge that I bring to the table, and I can do this job, and I can do it well. I try to help remind other folks of that when they're feeling in similar spots. But I think some of the challenges that I faced as a woman in tech, working in the DEI field, the sense of having to really kind of prove it again, that sense of having to work twice as hard to advance what you believe is right in an organization, and speaking generally here. And that can really weigh on you. You're constantly having to prove your worthiness every day.
What's the mission of your role now with Reverb? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I started at Reverb about 2 years ago, and the focus of my role really is on our internal employee diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. So we believe that the environment that we create for our employees, our ability to cultivate a diverse, inclusive environment that helps us do our best work, helps us put out our best product, ultimately will help our customers, our users, our sellers, our buyers, but also just to make the world more musical and reach a wider audience, right? And so that through line for us of how we show up internally and externally is really important. So I see myself as an internal partner. So a lot of what I do is partnering with our recruiting team to make sure that our recruiting policies and practices are free from bias, that we're really hiring the best quality that's out there. We're going to be a value add to our teams, and then helping ensure that we're cultivating a really inclusive culture at our company. And so I work really closely with leaders on specific team-based efforts, but also help to build our first employee resource group program, which has been super exciting. And one of the reasons why I said yes to Reverb is because they wanted to invest in creating employee-led spaces for folks to find community, that sense of belonging, support one another in those moments where it might feel tough.
Thank you. So guys, we're going to start talking a little bit more about fostering diversity in your workspace. So, in your experience, what are some effective strategies for fostering diversity or bringing in diverse groups into your workspace? You guys have any thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, certainly it starts with hiring, and it's a double-edged sword, because clearly you don't want to bring someone into a position just to have them represent, and it's encouraging people to apply to those positions. And I think as women, a lot of times, like you were saying, we have some skills, but we don't feel we excel in them, so we don't talk about them. And in having events like this, we can meet other women and find out what they're interested in. Because someone might say, oh, well, I'm really just an educator and I do blah, 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 but they actually have a lot of technical skills. And encourage them to ease into those spaces where they do have knowledge, where they can excel, but that they don't feel themselves, capable to qualify.
The one thing that jumped out to me when you asked that question, I think any strategies to me need to have some sort of tie to education and raising awareness. Because you were talking about fostering, right? And fostering itself has the connotation of advancement, of development. So if we are truly being more diverse than as an industry, then we should be able to look back and see that we've improved. But I think I want to emphasize on the fact that, when we say we've improved, it's not just to look at the makeup of people, because diversity, yes, you can make a HR strategy to say, next year we want 50% of our hires to be people of color. That's fine, and that's diversity. But diversity doesn't go very far without inclusion, right? Because inclusion is whether or not people feel belong, whether or not people feel like they're integrated as part of the environment. And if people don't like being here, the scene is going to change again. So I think we really need to focus on the inclusion part. We really need to, and it needs to start with each one of us, each organization, and once we go back to our communities, how do we do that at our organizational level? And it needs to start with real people and real issues, because I guess inclusion just comes in so many different shapes and forms, right? Like it can be, a lot of people focus on gender and race, but then also age, there's disability, there's so many ways to feel excluded. So, and it's a big topic, it really is. So I think that you need to focus on the real people, what's going on in your organization. Is that the younger generations just don't feel like they're a part of us, and what can you do about that? People to teach you about, multi-generational management. It needs to start with something that you can work on. I think that's, because it's just so big that I don't focus on those things that are realistic, and it's just something, I don't know, it's too much. I love that.
Emily. And that's great. It's a great thought.
Yeah, I think I would just build on that and add us creating that inclusive culture, because if you focus so much on hiring and bringing a wide variety of folks with different backgrounds into your space, but don't do anything to support, cultivate that beautiful community, so much can actually be lost. And so I find that setting collective accountability toward goals related to not just representation, but also retention. One way that we keep a pulse on this is by doing a regular employee engagement survey to get a sense of how folks are feeling. inclusion and sense of belonging is tricky to measure. It's something that you feel for yourself, but to be able to really quantify that is difficult. And so a process of, I think, seeking out the information in different ways, but also being willing to ask hard questions and build up relationships to really enforce that.
Do you guys have, in another panel similar to this that I did, they talked about similar ideas where, yes, you can bring diverse people into your workplace, but then how do you address some of the unique issues that might come up when you have people from different backgrounds, different genders, or different needs in your workforce now, and you don't know about them, right? Even as women, okay, we might have kids, and we might have to deal with that, and sometimes we feel we feel bad, we got to go take our kid to the doctor. You guys have thoughts about how to maybe make a workspace more open to those conversations so that people can talk about it?
I've had that situation because I openly say none of the work is as hard as dealing with the other people. I never had to be responsible employees and having all these laws and regulations that regulate kind of stuff. I think it's making the workplace flexible but still holding people accountable. Because what you don't want is you don't want to create resentment in the employees who do not have families, that they feel like that those who do are getting some kind of extra perk. I don't know, their kid's sick. Why are they leaving early? That kind of thing. And part of that is to constantly, let it be known too that we're making it allowable for those people to maybe make up their hours from home or on the weekends or whatever. And now that we're kind of working in this flex workspace, these kinds of things become available to us so that you let the rest of your team know that even though that person may have to be out for a week because their child's sick or they have a sick mother or whatever, that they're still contributing to be a part of this team. And if when those things fall apart, the most important thing is to have those conversations in private, because especially in a small company, because you don't want that to be something that everybody else is talking about. You don't want to be part of the rumor mill, that kind of thing, that the favoritism or whatever. It's a great, to have an equal workplace, you have to create equality in the workplace.
Does anybody else have
I just started thinking about the importance of psychological safety, so that culture that you create where people feel like they can fail or make mistakes or do something differently, and just is such an important foundation when I think about DEI work. I had another thought and it just totally left my brain, of course.
Don't worry, I actually forgot about the question.
But I think what you were speaking about just kind of normalizing the ways in which we take care of each other, and people may need different things, but our contribution is just valued and valuable. That's so important. I think for your question, how do we kind of work through this where we may be having uncomfortable conversations for the first time, or confronting parts of ourselves even that we are still learning about, right? No one is perfect. We all make mistakes. And I think having that openness and authentic willingness to get it wrong, but work to get it right, and the next time to be able to apologize with grace and to doing better next time, that's so important.
Yeah, I would also add, I think maybe part of it is to just foster maybe some activities or some things to just help everybody get to know each other better as whole people. It's like my company, we're a global team. There are people that we work with that have never met each other in person. And there's even some tools, I can't remember what platform it was, it might have been Zoom or Slack or something, where it'll randomly pair you once a month with somebody else. Yeah, Donut. And you just have a chat for 20 minutes and get to know each other, so that if there is some challenge, at least you know that person a little bit better. And I think it's when people don't really know or understand people as whole people that we have some human relations issues come up that don't need to be there. You know, that, so I mean, it is a real challenge for virtual teams. My company is 100% virtual. And when you get together, it means so much to be together with someone face to face, even having a cup of coffee. But I would recommend some, you don't want it to be corny, you don't want to feel too forced, but just getting to know you type things are important.
I really don't remember the question, but I'll build on what you were saying about I think it's important for us to build a culture of curiosity, right? Because I think people naturally are more respectful if they know each other. And, you know, I think as humans, some of us are naturally standoffish. It's normal, and, you know, we have unconscious bias because we're people, not because we're bad people. So I remember when I first started at Gator, I was very quiet. Because I just don't know what I was doing. And one time they took a whole team out to lunch, and we went to a dim sum restaurant. You know, dim sum is from Hong Kong. And I just remember this coworker, he just kept asking me questions. It was so uncomfortable. Everything from like the chopsticks and like it was just the whole focus was on me. I was so uncomfortable. But I guess afterwards, like one thing I realized was I've had more conversations with directors with people, more than I've had in the last 3 months. And I noticed how people took more curiosity towards me and they wanted to talk to me more because they have started that conversation. And sometimes maybe I'm intimidating because I look different. Right? So I think really taking a chance on the connection that you know, really the power of individuals is really big, you know, because even if you see people who are not respectful, I think a lot of times it is because of ignorance, not malice. So I think it's just a willingness to preach and to educate.
Yeah, and it's scary, right? Like if you're in that situation and you were really uncomfortable, it's really hard to say, you know, I just want you to know, like, this situation is making me feel a little uncomfortable, and here's why. Like, that's really hard to do. And I think especially when we're talking about diversity, you know, gender diversity, cultural diversity, ethnic diversity, it's a scary topic because you don't want to make a mistake. Like, it feels really touchy, especially in this country.
I feel right now.
It's hard. It's a hard thing to talk about. So, but I would say having those hard conversations and even saying, like, I want to apologize in advance if I offend you, but I really want to know this about you. If you come from a place of sincerity, I think that that's okay. And the person can say, well, I'd really rather not talk about it, and then you just shouldn't leave them alone if they don't want to talk about it. But I think it's a good thing to at least extend a hand. I want to maybe talk about, have some ideas of how, I think a challenge in this industry is finding qualified candidates that are diverse. Do you guys have any thoughts about that? I know WiMN of NAMM does.
Well, like right now, we are hired, and that became one of the issues too, because I was and I'll just say the position. The position actually is for shipping, and we did half the applicants were women, and I got really excited. And I just assumed that my staff would share the excitement with me, but then immediately the question was raised, but it is a shipping condition. I mean, it's a shipping position, and there are situations where there are very heavy pieces of equipment. Is this something that we want a woman in? And weirdly enough, I think we're at the age where people are sensitive. Those questions were posed by women to my staff, because I think that men didn't want to be the ones to voice it. Then that made me realize, I think we're kind of in like when Leanne just said, like, I don't know how to answer this, and I don't know if we can address it, because we are fearful. Like, do you say something like that? But is it practical and impractical? And I don't have an answer to that. Can I throw it to this crowd? Like, I didn't know how to respond to it. You know, and all I could say is, well, let me bring some people in and let's see how we as a group react to them, kind of thing, because I don't know.
Yeah, I think for us at Reverb, really examining our policies and practices when it comes to interviewing and hiring has been really important. One thing that we've done is review any job description that we post for any gendered language. So we use a program called TextVO to help us do that and leverage AI to make sure that some of that unconscious bias unintentionally comes through in our language. And so that's been a really important way for us to make sure that right from the get-go we are casting a wide net. The other piece that I think is important that we also try to do is just to cultivate intentional, authentic relationships with different communities. Because when you have that basis of relationship, you're able to really leverage that and provide that equitable access to opportunity as well.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm gonna leave out, I don't do a lot of hiring.
Okay. Yeah, I also think about, definitely participating in mentoring programs and like just creating opportunities for women and other diverse groups to even know about the careers in our industry. Like, you see like there's some, I think we're getting a little bit better, but some things like, the product demonstrators or, salespeople or whatever has traditionally been very male focused, but I think it's like some of those things that we have to like literally go out and reach our hand out and say, I think you might be good for this. Like, come learn more about it.
I have to say, one of the things I noticed at this show is that there are actually less booth babes at the booths, and I think that is progress.
I don't know if there's any. I haven't seen any. But I do think we've made progress in the industry. I think, groups like WiMN of NAMM and Women's International Music Network and all the things we're doing, a lot of what we do is to create visibility for the opportunities in the industry so that more women and girls and people of all
Well, Laura, I mean, not to blow smoke, but I want to say in the last 10 years what you and Bonnie have done to raise the profiles of women who are in the industry has been spectacular, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I do think seeing role models, seeing other women do, what they do, and like understanding like, oh, that's a career. People don't know. I didn't know. When I was in college, I was in my music business program. The thought of the music products industry did not cross my brain one single time. I didn't know that that was an industry. I wanted to work in the record label industry, and I did. And then this job at Korg was like sort of put in front of me, and I was like, what's that? Keyboard company? Is that cool? I don't know. And then I found out more about it, and I'm like, okay, like this seems like it could be a really great job. So I think just exposing people. I know we participate in, school programs, mentorship programs, other visibility things, podcasts, all that stuff. So we're trying to let people know that there are these opportunities in the industry and that there's women's networks to help bring other people into the industry.
Well, since we're talking about bringing more women in the industry, I have to talk a little bit about Women of NAMM here. So NAMM has fully embraced Women of NAMM as a NAMM member service. So we were here to create a lot of benefits for everybody. And I think one thing we can all do, not just women, but as a NAMM member, is that our pillars are something that we can all model after. Our pillars are to connect, support, and grow. What can we all do to help other people do that, right? Connect, help people connect. Like, don't just be here for your own connections. Our industry does really great at, like, hey, so-and-so, connect. You let them do their thing, but help other people get to know other people. We have such a diverse group here. We have younger people, you want them to feel comfortable. Help them connect. Second, we help them, we support them. We have such a great group. The community that's growing. We have so many supporters here. And I think that support has been a rock for myself because, like I said, we all have our self-doubts. And having that support group is being able to just text me with my friend when I'm feeling insecure. It's great. And then also growing is helping others find opportunities. And I think there are so many here. And also, NAMM itself has, you know, the Career in Music initiative. I believe there's a session after this to talk about that as well. So I think this whole initiative to talk about bringing the next generation in is so important because we're not here to kick white male out of this industry, right? We're trying to bring in more. The industry is growing. NAMM's trying to bring in more.
We're making a bigger pie.
Yeah,
Making it bigger.
So I think it's important that we reach out to these, you know, schools, reach out to these younger folks and tell them that, hey, there are a lot of opportunities here, and look at all these successful careers that we have created. And we want this to be bigger, and we want you to be a part of that. So I'm grateful for everything that you're doing, and grateful to be a part of it. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. And I think as, you know, a lot of us, you know, you hear the stories, like we're musicians too. And I think if you're a musician and you need to have a day job, it's a great place to do it.
The weirdest thing is, I mean, I was a struggling musician at one point, but the highlight of my career was being played on All Songs Considered before it was Tiny Desk. And then to have Josh Rogerson, who does In the Name for Tiny Desk, come to our booth and say hi to me was like such a thrill. But I mention all this because I actually am playing more music in more pronounced spaces and name spaces now than I was before because of what I do and the people I know. Like I actually had to turn down a gig at Motel Cafe because I was busy working. And that's the kind of thing I would have never thought would happen. So you can't equate one with the other. So your professional life, your creative life, what this industry allows you to do is to foster both.
All right, thanks. I think we're going to take some questions from the audience. I don't have a mic for the audience, so if you speak loudly.
Yeah, you can take one of ours.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Oh, we do. Here we go.
Hi, ladies. I run one of the biggest, actually, I own the biggest female-operated production company in my province. But accessing funding has been incredibly challenging. We get passed over for larger companies because of government restrictions. Our company needs to make over a certain threshold or have so many employees. We grew to 3 employees last year, which is fantastic, and we've got 25 subcontractors. But getting funding has just been incredibly hard. And I was wondering if you guys have any suggestions or advice on ways that I can overcome. That's a huge roadblock for me. And we're capable of doing awesome things, but it's really hard to compete with the big guys when they see a woman walk in and they're like, nah, we're gonna give it to that guy.
Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
I was dying to answer that question because our attorney, what's his name, Heather Raffner, who most of us do know, she is very instrumental in creating consortiums to try to help organizations like yours, getting people like me to help contribute a piece. And what we were able to do, several months ago was allow some women creators to go to a conference and to support them in getting there to Louisiana. Please contact me afterwards, and I would love to present what you do, or if you could send me a deck to become one of those companies that we support. And I think between ourselves, we all have to lift each other up, and it's the smaller companies, larger companies, that if we can help, that it's our responsibility.
I mean, that's a great thought too. Like I've been in other parts of the industry where there has been trade consortiums where, there'll be like the production company and the publicist and they all give each other work. So, I mean, if you can get together with, other like-minded people in your area, you might be able to help each other, refer to each other. So that's, we can talk more about that.
It could also be, an extension of Women of NAMM as well, like having a little, section of it where we do, like you all did today, because I was part of the last class, just sort through applicants and figure out, each year we can have small companies that we all pull our resources to support. Thanks for bringing it up.
I'm going to ask a question. Emily, you brought up unconscious bias in hiring and using AI to actually scan for that. Tell all of us, what would an example be of that? I mean, what sort of things should we look out for before the AI catches it?
Yeah, I think some things, just like vaguer descriptors that aren't necessarily specific, right? So I'm trying to think of like specific words that jump out, but yeah, just descriptor words I think in general are some of the tools that we can pull out.
That's really interesting to me because I hire and I haven't really thought about the language that might create bias. Yeah. We should talk more about that.
Yes.
Do we have another
We want
question?
here.
Okay.
For women of NAMM, this is a question about women of NAMM. Is there opportunities for women in like spiritual leadership? Because it's almost like it's very similar to how companies are run, but their ideals are so much more finite, and it's and some people just absolutely believe that women can't be in certain leadership roles, which really puts a hamper on things that I do. And so, is there anything that would speak to that with women of NAMM?
At the moment, I don't want to speak for women in NAMM, but I would love to connect with you afterwards.
Women in NAMM's pretty inclusive, though, in terms of different careers that women may have in our industry, for sure. Or those who identify as women.
Thank you. Leanne, you talked about in your earlier career being a quieter person. And I'm wondering if anyone on the panel could speak to maybe the kinds of leadership that other people expect of women and non-binary people, and sort of navigating how people think you should be, and then putting that with your own personality or leadership style.
I can start with that. I think I was kind of quiet too at the beginning, and our culture actually rewards more like masculine behavior, which is like more assertive speaking technique and louder. But I actually think that like some of the sensibilities that women bring to management are they sort of foster like a more emotional connection, and so sort of thinking about the whole general, like whole person and the whole team. So I think it is really tricky. I actually think that there's maybe a little bit more sense of it now. Back when I started out, I was definitely got louder and also interrupted people, because you can't wait to be asked to speak. If you don't interrupt, like someone else does, and then you never get to speak, and that's really hard I think for a lot of girls especially are taught to be quiet. I'm hoping that's changing too. But it is very tricky. I know that there's like other communication techniques and like talking now. And so maybe if you don't feel like you have had a chance to speak in a meeting, if you followed it up with, I was in that meeting and I didn't get to speak, but I had these ideas. Like don't be afraid to reach out and share your ideas and your thoughts, because otherwise people think you don't have any. And it's interesting because there's somebody on my team who was very, very quiet, and she got moved to. She actually wasn't on my team when she was super quiet, but then she got moved to my team, and I'm hoping that I helped her feel empowered to speak, because she has now just been promoted to a leader of that team, because she really stepped into that role and started speaking up. And I think as leaders too, we have to like foster that space for women to be able to feel like they have a safe space to speak.
I have very similar experiences. I come from a culture that's very reserved. We go to big classes. I remember if I wanted to pick up a pencil from the floor, I have to raise my hand and make sure the teacher sees me, and I can't move. I was never encouraged to talk, period. And I think at the beginning of my journey, when I was very quiet, well, first of all, you don't doubt yourself, right? Like, you know what you're doing, you have your ideas. I remember, and I have very similar experiences where, I knew I have the idea, I just don't have the voice yet. And I would gather my thoughts. I'm one of those people who just really like to gather my thoughts before I talk, which is not what I'm doing right now. But I will do that when I get, we have a meeting, I wanted to put my thoughts together, send an email out. And I think the moment that gave me opportunity was when, mentors in the company kind of realized that, she does have ideas. It's not that she doesn't. They started, saying, in meetings, Leanne, do you have anything to share? And at the time, but in a way like, but if not, it's okay. I think so. You have to find your support group. Every step of the way, you have to know these people who will mention your name, who have confidence in you. And I was very lucky to have a mentor, company who because earlier I talked about how I was very, I had a lot of self-doubt, right? So I was busy thinking about what other people think. I was very busy, working twice as hard as other people. But when you have a mentor who sees potential in you, what they do is they walk in front of you and they open doors for you before you even see them. So I think you need to find those people, and I think we need to be those people for other people. So I know I'm really off topic, talking about being quiet. But we need to be those people, and I think having mentorship programs, and specifically for women, specifically for people who have diverse backgrounds, is important because these people are accountable to make sure that you have equity, you have the opportunities, same opportunities to grow as a company.
Yeah, I think I would just add, these are great examples of active allyship, how we can show up for one another right then and there in the moment. I'm an introvert. I've been very quiet my whole life, my whole career. And a quick plug for Susan Cain's book, Quiet, all about introversion and how introverts make really wonderful leaders. But how can we maybe pause in that meeting where we're seeing that maybe someone is trying to contribute, but they're not being given the opportunity? How can we say, hey, actually, I see so-and-so's had their hand raised for a while. I'd really like to hear from them, or even if they don't have their hand raised, I know this is something you know a lot about. Maybe you could give us a little bit more insight and, give people an opportunity to shine, pass the mic. These are very simple ways that I think we can support and uplift one another.
I also think if you, if you don't feel comfortable in the meeting or nobody calls on you, if you have a one-on-one with your boss or the leader of the meeting, you could say, I have some ideas, but I didn't really find a space to say them in the meeting. It would really help me if you help make a space for me to speak. I can't imagine anybody saying, no, I'm not going to help make a space for you.
It's funny because I was just going to make a plea to everybody
Maybe I'm
out
wrong.
there.
I hope I'm not wrong.
No, I mean, I just want to make a plea to anybody out there in a supervisor, manager position, to make that time to check in with your team, because I did have that boss. And the reason why I left the industry in the 90s was I had that boss who said, why aren't you doing all this blah, blah, blah? I said, look, when you show me how to, and his response, and I swear, and he's no longer in the industry, so I can say it out loud, but I'm not going to say his name. He said, well, that's why you have this job, you're supposed to know how to do it. And that is absolutely the wrong thing to say to anybody on your team. If someone comes to you for help, you help them, or help them try to find a solution.
Because you just want people who want to contribute. As a team leader, you want people who want to be there and are in it. So,
Can I just add some quick?
Zach needs the mic.
Please, we have another question here.
Sorry, can I just add one thing? Because I think your question was what people expect from you as a leader, right? I just want to go back to this whole idea of inclusion, because I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what people expect from you. If you're a quiet person, if you want to speak louder, speak louder. But if you're a quiet person, I don't think it matters as much to be it doesn't matter as much, because it's about, if you can contribute to creating an environment where everybody feels included, you're going to create an environment where everybody can feel that they're peers. And that was my problem, because I was so young, I was not the most experienced in the room, and I felt I was doing the right thing by being quiet, because I thought that was being humble, and I was being humble as well. But that was the problem. I think it's, at one point you have to create that community for yourself, and you have to see yourself as peers. It doesn't matter how how you are, because these people are your friends, these people respect you, and that's all that matters.
Question here.
Thank you, Zach. The four of you have each accomplished so much in your niche of the industry. You've climbed your way up the ladder. I do know, however, there is a disproportionate amount of emotional labor that women take on in the workforce. And I think that could be a barrier to inclusion on the leadership level. So have any of you, how have you set boundaries as you've moved your way up to protect your energies and focus so you can become those leaders in your company?
It's really hard. Who says we have?
I was going to say, I have not set my boundaries.
I look out, my husband and my kids are there, they'll tell you that I don't spend enough time at home. And that's one of the things that you carry with you. And it's a conversation that we had, and we had to have an agreement. It's just an awareness to let them know mom's going to be gone a while. And that unfortunately is one of the trade-offs that you make, you know, as a professional with a family.
I think too, I do tend to overcommit. I think emotionally, I mean, we've all talked about imposter syndrome, like everybody up here, even at the highest level, you still feel that sometimes. And I do think having a support network that you can say, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing this, like, what do you do? Really, really helps. It helps more than you can possibly imagine. So creating that support network around you of like people you feel safe talking about your vulnerabilities with is really important. I think as far as creating boundaries with like, you know, the CEO or like your bosses and stuff, I try to be really real with them. You know, like some of them, they're managers, but that's not really their strength. And so you have to say, you know, when you texted me on Sunday about this thing that I couldn't do anything about till Monday, it really ruined like my day that I needed to recharge. So can you just schedule it to come to me at 9 a.m. on Monday so that I can deal with it then? And don't take that day away from me, you know, and like having those conversations with people, like they don't always know. And it's okay to say like, this is what I need. But it's also scary.
So scary. I love that you asked this question, and it's something that I've been reflecting on a lot. Therapy, for me, has been transformational. I think therapy is professional development. I would not have found the level of success that I have without being able to have that space where I could unpack a lot of my own stuff and figure out how that impacts how I show up. So I'm a huge proponent of therapy, investing in yourself in that way. And that's helped me understand what boundaries I need in place so that I can sustain myself. You know, I've experienced burnout in my career, and I've had to take that medical leave of absence because I was so burnt out by giving. And for me, like, it's non-negotiable. I won't go back there anymore. So therapy has been a huge part of my journey.
And I just add too, I feel like some of it, as we're all talking about it, but at points of our lives where we work that much harder and so much more just to prove that we can, is that a lot of it actually stems from our imposter syndrome. Because there's nobody else in that office that thinks we're working less except us. And it's a check-in with yourself too. And sometimes having a close friend or a close colleague that you can have those conversations with, and for them to tell you like, what are you talking about? Nobody thinks that of you. They already think you're a rock star.
It's so true. It's nice when there's someone else in the company that says, no, you're awesome. Don't worry. All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Emily, Jullie.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Appreciate you all for being here. And there's networks out there to help you, so please join in. They don't cost any money, just your time. Thank you.